Hey, my name's Jake. I'm a rig welder in West Texas, and I'm going to show you guys how to use a torch. So you're going to need an oxygen, and you're also going to need an acetylene to do any sort of torch cutting. And pretty much you can get these from any tractor supply or welding supplies preferred, because you can rent them out and it's not as expensive as purchasing them outright. If you do purchase them from your welding supply, make sure you buy them with a slick neck, because if you have them with their welding stamp on there, you are unable to take them to a different welding supply because it's only for that welding supply in particular. So this one right here is your oxygen. This one right here is your acetylene. Make sure anytime you are using these, you have your safety caps on. If these things fall over, tip over for any reason, these valves can easily break and cause some harm. I got these secured with some chains, and I got the safety cap on. These are gonna be your gauges. I have a video showing me inside the store how to find out which one's which, but usually they're labeled. So this one shows acetylene, and your pressure for your acetylene only goes to about 400, but a full bottle is gonna be from 200 to 250. Your operating PSI is gonna be about 12 pounds, and this operates the pressure. These notches right here in your acetylene hoses are gonna indicate to you that these are reverse threads. So you're gonna turn left to tighten these on and right to loosen. Also right here, and pretty much any attachment on this hose. This one right here is your oxygen gauge. This one does not have the notches, so it's gonna be right to tighten. Don't over tighten these. Full bottle on these is gonna be from 2,000 to 2,500. So for your oxygen, I usually keep it around 40. That'll cut from about 1/8 inch steel to 3/8 steel. If you're cutting 1/2 inch or bigger, usually you want to move it up to 60. So you see it still climbing, you just open up your hose and it'll drop. So your torch tips, it usually depends on the thickness of steel you're cutting. This one right here, I'm using a 0-3-101 that I bought right here is going to be 1-1-101. It's pretty much the size of the holes, which gives you more flow for this one. It gives you sharper cuts. So to clean these tips, because they get pretty dirty, you're gonna have to buy you some tip cleaners, just tiny little files that you put inside. Cleans out the holes. Or whenever you're on location, and if you don't have these, you can just use a little plank of wood and you run it on there. I'll show you how. As you can see, it's pretty clean already, but if you need to clean it off, you do this. Now it doesn't clean it as good as the tip cleaners, obviously, but if you're ever in a bind, you just use that. Make sure you're always wearing safety glasses. Don't want to lose your eyes. Set these up. It's pretty much just one nut. You don't want to over tighten because you have these little grommets in there, and it's brass, so don't over tighten these. Also, you can kind of give it any angle you really want to. As you can see, this one's a little rolled. It's just the best fit for me, where they land and how I cut. So I'm gonna kind of try to match it. And then when it goes to tightening these, a good rule of thumb is to use 2 crescent wrenches. 2 crescent wrenches, and about the tightness of your grip. It's more than enough. And then for putting on the tip, you just take this nut off. Slide your tip in. Put it back. Okay, so these right here are called quick connects. It's pretty much self-explanatory. That's all they do. They just a quicker connection, just so you're not struggling and putting on these nuts directly to your torch. You just put one side on your hose, one side on your torch. These are almost like check valves, so they do have a flow. Obviously on here you can't really mess it up, but if you're putting it in between your hoses, you have to make sure you're following your flow. So this one right here kind of shows it. This is your female side, and this was the one that pushes out the flow. into the male. Also, this one's gonna be left thread, your acetylene, and then this one's gonna be right to tight. After putting all this together usually is when you set your pressure. So after you have this connected, if you didn't have any of this connected, you really can't regulate your pressure correctly. You got to have this to bleed off pretty much. Open that one up. This one's your oxygen, this one's your fuel, your acetylene. Your oxygen is normally going to be around 40 pounds and your acetylene is going to be from 10 to 12 pounds operating pressure. So to turn on your torch, you always turn on your fuel first, which is going to be your acetylene. So they have little valves at the bottom. This is to open them up. They're both left, both right to close. Your oxygen on the bottom always remains open, constantly. And then this is where you regulate your oxygen. So open up your fuel very lightly. Make sure this one's shut. Open up your fuel. Turn it on. Light. Put it up to the heat you want, more or less. And then sharpen it with this one. What you're looking for is a light baby blue. This will not do anything. It's probably just turn off, if anything. So you put it to a light baby blue and make sure your tip is very sharp. You don't want it fuzzy. You want it sharp, like that. So usually the only reason you're cutting pipe with the torch is because you're scrapping it for the most part. So usually it's going to be about a 40-foot joint that's on the ground. If it's ever coated or if it has paint on it, you can run a cutting disc through your mark just so you don't lose the mark while you're cutting. Because if you put the torch on your mark, it's going to just totally blow away all this soapstone. Turn on your acetylene first, your fuel. Light it up. So you turn it on right here, sharpen it, depending on your thickness of your pipe or any material. And this lever right here pretty much blows through it. That's all it does. Sharpen it up a little bit. You see how it's getting fuzzy? So you get your material nice and cherry red. And then you're going to use that lever to just blow through it. Almost. Right there. A little more. So for the most part, if it keeps turning off on you, it's probably because of the coating. You can just put it higher pressure and burn it off. So usually this is going to be, like I said, a 40-foot joint, and you're not going to be able to roll it. So you're probably not going to be able to burn off the bottom. Obviously right here I can, but I'll try to show you guys how to cut it without it. Get back on there. Roll with that pipe. And almost kind of flick it away from me to kind of keep it more straight. Like that, like flick it down. Kind of the same thing at the bottom. So as you're gonna see, I'm not gonna get directly under it. I'm gonna act as if it was on the floor. Or usually you have it on skid, so it's gonna be a few inches off the floor. But what you do is you're gonna get down here to the bottom, and obviously you're gonna be hitting the floor. So what I do is I flick it as much as I can, and I just kind of stay in the same spot, and you'll see that cut opening it up. So look, usually you're gonna tap out about right here. Then you're just gonna keep going and hold it nice and slow. Let that heat accumulate and just push it through. Push it through, push it through, push it through, hold it, hold it. Then you get past the middle. So another couple things I forgot to show you guys. Usually you want to float above your material about an 1/8 inch to 1/16, about right there. I don't know if you can see, but that's kind of the sweet spot right there. You don't want to touch because it'll turn off your tip. Don't want that. Obviously, you're not going to have a steady hand when you first start off. Took me a few years. My very first test I ever did, I was only about 2 months of experience, and I had never used a torch before. And they had me testing with 1-inch steel plate. And obviously I had seen them cut before, but when I tried to cut it, the guy asked me if I cut it with an axe because of how fucked up it was. Of course, I left my axe at the house that day. Another thing, always be vigilant of where you have your hoses at. So if I come down here and make that cut, this can easily fall and cut my hoses, and it'll start a fire from your cut. And the only way to turn it off, you can try to pinch it, you can try to do whatever. The only way to turn it off is by going to your bottles and turning it off directly from the source. So get those out the way. We're gonna do the same thing here. Pretend like we're hitting the ground and follow it all the way through. Right here, usually I'll set my tip on there as I just angle it. You can kind of see through your cut, see where you're at. Obviously, if this is on the ground, you're not going to be able to do that. You should have just held it a little longer. It will cut through. So usually for I-beam cuts, more than likely you're going to be able to flip it. Very rare where I've had a situation where I'm not able to flip it, even if it's on the ground. Usually it'll be just a fresh load that's been dropped off from the material yard, and it's not quite as in a bind as when you have to cut junk pipe. I mean, it could happen. Get you a SkyTrack, get it out of there if it is stuck in between some other material. Because you're more than likely not going to be able to cut through this whole thing without moving it. So the motion on this one, what I like to do is I like to just roll my hand, roll the wrist. It keeps a very square cut. I mean, here I marked it, but I'll show you guys how I cut it. Just freehanding it without a mark. And you can see it's relatively square. When I first started out, even with the marks, I would get a very unsquare cut. So don't be scared. I'm gonna give you a little preheat. Kind of stay a little bit in the middle because you're gonna cut that web right there. And what that does is it gives you a guideline to start from when you're cutting it in the middle. Start there. I like to cut both tops first, but in this situation I don't think I can because it's not marked, but we'll try. Sharpen that up. Now all you're going to do is connect both sides. You're going to connect this side to that side. Should have cut more back. This is burning my hands. My gloves. Make sure you guys are using the right gloves too. If you're using those plastic ones, you're just going to melt them to your hand if it does the spark. Cutting through thicker material, this is the one to do it with. I've done it before. I've made fire tube flanges with this torch. So I've cut material very similar to this one. I believe it was 1 inch and 1/4 thick steel. This one right here, I'm really not too sure. I don't have a measuring tape on me, but looks pretty thick. But as you're making cuts, it builds up a little residue on the tip. The better you are, the less you get. But that's why I use that piece of wood, just to clean it off. I'm also going to show you why you have to use the correct amount of pressure for the thickness. So right here I'm going to go overboard and I'm going to use too much. It's going to melt the material back together because it's too hot. Also, they say to preheat right where you're gonna cut. Anytime I'm cutting thinner material, I like to preheat about a 1/2 inch ahead of it. Because you'll notice whenever you get back into it, you'll just blow a big old glob. So if you preheat over here, cuts way better. I don't think it's melting back together, but usually that's what'll happen. Nope. So this is the appropriate amount of pressure you need to use. I guess the more experience you have, you'll run it quicker, you'll kind of know how to get it to cut. Check out the difference. So the one on the left, you can see straight through it. And the one on the right is kind of bringing that slag back into it. So now I'm going to show you guys with the other torch. I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to first time I'm gonna use this bad boy. I think I'm already running out of flint. If you want to look cool. So I'm trying to sharpen it, but it comes shut, so you're gonna have to open this. Usually I just open it all the way. All the way. And you can leave it like that. The oxygen side, this one can always stay open. You sharpen it from this side. So the same thing. Go off of your thickness, how much pressure you need. That's too much, but I'll just show you guys. Sharpen it. You don't want it fuzzy. You want it sharp. That's too much pressure, but I'm going to show you guys what it does. Cuts like a fucking dream is what it does. Lower it. You don't need that much fucking pressure. Actually cuts pretty badass. Just started a fire. Usually also when I shut it off, I like to turn off my oxygen first, shut it off, then shut off my gas. Oh, and if you have a little residual flame left, you just press that and it'll turn it off. Now we're gonna cut our 1-inch steel. Or I think it's 1-inch steel. So usually anytime you're cutting on steel this thick, more likely it's gonna be a blind flange that you're gonna be putting an OLED on. So I like to cut on the side that I'm putting the OLED, because usually the other side is gonna be blown out to shit and it's not gonna be a nice cut. So the side that you should cut on is usually gonna be the outside, not the side where you're gonna put your gasket. So let's show the difference between the light duty and the heavy duty. Positive that the heavy duty is gonna cut way better. So I'm gonna adjust the pressure. We're gonna put it to 60 pounds. So I'm using an old ass gauge that I bought. I don't even remember where I picked this up at. But it's running up that pressure. So it's climbing all the way to around 100. But then whenever I'm operating it, it drops back down to 40. I'm pretty sure this thing needs to be refurbished. I have a better one on my rig. This is not the one I use daily. But watch when I turn on the hose. Runs back down to 40 where I'm operating. So cutting this thick steel, I'm gonna want to run it around 60. So let's turn that up. So to turn it up, you go right. So about right there. About 50. That'll work. So I'm gonna give my light duty one the benefit of the doubt, and I'm gonna cut second, so it's already preheated. But there's no way this one doesn't cut better. And then as for your acetylene, you don't really change the pressure on that when you're cutting thicker metal. Still leave it around 12. A nice thick one. Nice thick flame on there. So your gas pretty much affects your size of the flame. So the more gas, the bigger your flame. You can't give more oxygen and give a bigger flame. All the oxygen does really is it just sharpens it. So I can't turn it up and get, I mean, it gets bigger, but it's not doing anything. You turn up your gas, and then you adjust your oxygen. Want it about right there. This one's gonna be the same thing. You're gonna get a cherry red. And anytime you're cutting thick metal, you don't want to start directly where you're going to cut at. If I start right here and I press the lever, it's just going to make it a really bad start. There's so much metal it has to push through that it's just going to throw up all the slag, and it's going to make it a horrible cut. So you always start in the middle. Or if you're cutting an outline, you're going to start on the outside of the outline and cut into it, and then start cutting. But usually you're cutting for an outlet. Get that nice and cherry red. And be careful, because we're going to sling a lot of crap. Careful with that slag, lift above that slag. I think I started a fucking fire again. Kick them off to the side. Usually I like to kick them where there's nothing is gonna burn. So like I said, my first test looked like absolute fucking dog shit. Was nowhere near this consistent. I mean, it's not that good, but you know. Let's see what the bottom looks like. So like I said, this is gonna be the size of your outlet, the top cut. Your bottom cuts usually, if you're even bending it even a little bit, it's gonna cut it at an angle. So it's not gonna be nice. More than likely not gonna be circle. Or if it is, your circle is probably going to be off center. Check this out. Still going to get the job done for your outlet, but your bottom is never going to be as good as the top is. Unless you're fucking badass. Check that out. Then you just run the grinder over that and clean all that slag off. Okay, now let's go with this small torch, see what it does. So same thing, start with your gas, put a fuckload of gas, sharpen your tip. Usually press the lever to see if it's gonna be not sharp. So look, you can see it gets real fuzzy. Sharpen it up, press that lever, adjust. Same concept, cut in the middle, work your way to the outside. I don't know if you saw, all my slag blew this way, so maybe I can start right here in this little corner. Have a little more luck. So I already know that this torch isn't putting it out as much as the other one, so I'm gonna slow down that cut. I'm not gonna move quite as fast, but I love this torch and I wanted to cut better than the other one. No. Probably gonna have to knock off this fucking flag. The other one was a fucking monster. It's not cutting nearly as nice. I should have invested in a bigger torch a long time ago. But like I said, this has got me through my whole welding career so far. So I don't want to see it leave. But different tools are made for different situations. I don't even think it was going to knock out. Nope. Alright, check out the quality difference. Fucking crazy. So use the right tools for the right situation. I guess it wouldn't have been a bad investment 9 years ago. Let's check out the other side. So usually this is what I mean. It's almost like your oxygen just tries to find a way out and travels in any which fucking way. See that right there? This thing is a fucking monster. I think if I were you and you're starting out in the welding industry, I would probably just start with this one. There's no reason to start with that small one. Now that I'm using this one, I use that small one for storage purposes. I've always had smaller. You just don't want to waste so much space inside your welding truck. You don't want to have big ass tools, but this one's totally worth it. I would keep it in the brands of Victor. I believe this one's a trademark, but it's made by Victor. No, it's Weldmark, but it's by Victor. Or ProStar. But this one, man, I love the design on these. If you buy an actual Victor, this brass is all completely enclosed to right here. And the way I hang it inside my welding bed, I just have like a little piece of metal that kind of slides in right here. So that's why I guess I prefer this open spot right here. But man, this fucking big torch is a fucking beast. And that tip, I'll probably buy the smaller tip just to have both, make more precise cuts, but I had no problem with this one at all. 101-1-1 Victor tips. I wouldn't buy anything other than Victor tips. I've bought some pretty crappy quick connects before in the past. I'll put in the link in description which ones to buy. I'll probably even put like an Amazon cart. There's one that has like a black cardboard backing, and they just come like in a little piece of plastic. I would never buy those again. They're absolute shit. They leak from the quick connect part in between, and I just had so many problems with those. Also, they would get dirty and you absolutely could not attach. I mean, these get dirty no matter what, but these will still attach. Usually I keep some Dawn soap, like the spray one, and I'll just spray in there and run some water through it. That'll clean them out, or even just saliva, just spit in these motherfuckers and just fling it out. But just make sure you're getting the good quality. You want to buy it twice, pretty much. You're gonna need a repair kit. I like to use my 3/16 hoses. I've never owned a 1/4 inch hose before. I think they're too big, too lunky. So, I mean, it comes with both. You're gonna run into some people that are probably gonna need some shit, so it's good to have both. I mean, these things will save you out of a bind. It saved me out of bind more than a lot. And then right here for my small torch, I highly doubt you can put this on a big torch, but this is from a Sumner jack. I just took it off, cut it, took off the attachment right here and slid it over. It's just for a nice grip. Put your fingers. Man, this thing, I'm probably gonna retire this motherfucker. Alright, you guys, this is me inside the store checking out the different gauges. The oxygen is going to be represented with the green, your acetylene with the red. You can also get you some brass ones, but these are perfectly fine. I really recommend these kits if you're going to use it for like an auto body shop, something where you don't need much hose, because it only comes with about 10 feet. I wasn't able to find any of these brands online or on Amazon, so I think you are going to have to go to your local welding supply to pick these up. So I picked up that bigger tip for the video, but I think I'm going to head back and go get me that smaller tip just for some finer cuts. Up this brand online and it only pops up as Kaoki. Make sure you just go to the welding supply and pick up the Sentinel. Also, please stay away from any oxygen hoses that don't have any name brand. These, I believe I ordered them online. It was 100 foot of some 3/16 and they were crap. Right here you can see that the ones I'm using right now in my rig are Continental 3/16. I couldn't find them online, but I'll tag some 1/4 inch ones. But I prefer the 3/16. If you guys made it this far, I just want to thank you for your support. And with a little advice, just don't ever listen to people. If you're trying to get in this trade, you're going to have some bad motherfuckers probably tell you you're a dumbass, or even your family will tell you you're not going to make it, you're just a wannabe welder. But you're always able to choose your response to that kind of negativity, and you can just turn your anger into a positive source of just getting after it and becoming the best welder that you could possibly be and using it to your advantage. And if you have trouble with that, I definitely recommend checking out Outwitting the Devil on Audible. And I'll see you guys on the next one.